As I shared earlier, I identify as a democratic socialist, and I'm actually running as a democratic socialist because of my life experience. I also shared earlier, I'm originally from Chicago. And what I will say about Chicago is if you ever needed an example that affirms that the system of racial capitalism is unreformable and unredeemable. And when I say racial capitalism, it's the system that we have now, and we've all touched on, of having a market driven system led by corporate forces that really relies on the extraction of resources of labor, typically the freed or enslaved labor of former colonized beings, being African American or folks of African American descent, our indigenous folks. Racial capitalism is honestly the failures of that system. Is very apparent in Chicago. If you ever want to see it, just take a visit there if you haven't. And as I mentioned earlier, Chicago is historically a uh, democratically represented city. But again, it still remains to be one of the worst racially segregated cities in the US, and overall horrible place for Black people. So I grew up with a lot of pressures from my family to use education, as Nevada talked about, and my academic gifts to get not only me, but my family up out of Chicago. So I left home around 2009 on a full ride scholarship to Carleton College, that's based here in Northfield, Minnesota. But I went there with the sole goal of going corporate, which is a far way from originally identifying as a socialist. But I wanted to go corporate so I could make a crap ton of money so that I could help my loved ones escape. But upon getting to college, I immediately learned that the inequities and the injustices that my family and my community experienced, that I touched on earlier, again, the lack of, access to public programs and infrastructures that allows you to have a quality of life, the experience of having to support multiple loved ones through their journeys in our criminal justice system. And that for me is having a brother who spent 20 years in our local criminal justice system for marijuana possessions, learning that those injustices were not just happen chance. They were not just a byproduct of individual decisions or bad decisions based by my cousins and my loved ones, but they were a byproduct of decisions made by people in power, particularly politicians, the police department, corporate forces in our city. And then realizing that, I understood that one, the corporate path, while it could help me and my loved ones have a better life, the rest of my community would not have the same chance while those unjust systems and power brokers remained in place.